Good morning. This is Alana. Welcome to Let's Draw episode 9, where we're having a silly time and actually doing a very professional, obviously, illustration. Now, this is actually a yearly event that I do where I do an illustration for St. Lucy's Day. But we're doing something very out of my normal wheelhouse, which is I'm actually going to be soaking and stretching my watercolor paper to create my canvas. So my cat needs to be a part of this process as always, but I've got my soaking tin, I've got what I had hoped would be the tools that I use to stretch the paper, but that didn't necessarily work, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk about the actual process of getting this paper ready, and then we'll talk a little bit about St. Lucy's Day, which is always December the 13th, and we'll go from there. Now, I will drag you out of the gutter where I myself am living because soaking and stretching is actually very specific terms for watercolor paper itself. So as you can see, I'm dunking this very thick watercolor paper in water, and I'm going to let it soak and absorb water for a set amount of time. For this 130-ish weight paper, I'm letting it sit for I think it was about 7 minutes or so, maybe closer to 6. But after you soak this paper, we're actually going to be allowing that extra water to drip off. And then you bow the paper so that there's no air bubbles between the paper itself and the surface that you're laying it down upon. In my case, I don't have a lot of professional tools for the things that I like to do. So it's just the back of a liquor box. And I had initially hoped to use a bunch of knitting needles to pin this paper down so that as it dries, it stretches and it keeps a bit of a tautness to it. But those did not work. I then tried something else, which you see me doing here. It super didn't work. I, in essence, found some pins from my sewing box that I grabbed, and that is what I used. Now, the reason for soaking and stretching watercolor paper is to allow it to become even more absorbent than it usually is, because it's in essence already been filled with liquid. That liquid then dries and gives you a much more receptive, I want to call it a document, but that's just the legal coming out, a much more receptive piece of paper to actually fill and flood with more layers of watercolor than if you just went raw into the paper. I'm an adult. And so it's very much just allows you to work in more layers in watercolor so you have a more vibrant piece at the end of the process, but your paper also doesn't buckle as much as if you were to just go raw onto the paper. And yeah, that's how I feel too. Me too, Alana. So now that that's done, good morning. It's the next day. Ignore the hair, nothing is taming it. But we have now lovingly stretched our canvas. It is a little bit bumpy because I do not have the proper anything to be doing what I want to do perfectly, but whatever. Perfect is the enemy of the good. We did, in fact, color sketch out the general map of what I would like my composition to be, but I am going to take a painstaking amount of time to actually sketch this in pencil. Now, why pencil instead of pen, you ask? Well, let me show you. Because when you're working in pen, like ink pen and watercolor, I always forget the fact that it's going to bleed and very much will affect the color at the end of the process. So as much as I would like to always sketch in pen, because that's just what I've been doing since I've been in high school, I need to be an adult. I need to sketch in pencil. And then actually, I like the length of this rectangle in essence, and I don't necessarily enjoy how square this is. So I do think I'm going to cut off, maybe an inch or two on each side. And then I will meet you back here. So give me just a second. Okay. So here's the thing. I have a lot of straight edges that are really great for things that are smaller than this. And then only one single straight edge for something that's bigger than this. So this is what we're going to use. Now you may be asking, Alana, I thought you were pagan. I thought you celebrated the old gods and the new gods. And that is true. However, I love the divine of every nature. So St. Lucy and St. Lucy's Day is actually for a Christian martyr from Syracuse back in 304 CE. And I don't necessarily remember how I found St. Lucy, but I just feel very connected and drawn to her. And I love this little process that I do. So it's very much just based on every year I create some type of illustration, just giving her energy, giving her time, and thinking over what, I don't know, what the end of her life was like. Because she died on the 13th of December in 304 CE. And I'll talk about more in a second. Needed to take a break because somebody just desperately needs 100% of my love and attention and affection. Huh. I'm sorry I have disturbed you. Go back to sleep, little motherfucker. And I should reiterate, there's always individuals that think one versus the other date for her death. So it's 304 AD, it's 304 CE, it's who knows. But St. Lucy was actually partially the saint of the blind. And so without my glasses, I have been legally blind for all of my life, even though my vision has been getting better for some reason in the last few years. But she's almost always depicted with, actually, no, she is always depicted with lighter hair, with and a wreath full of candles at her crown, because she would regularly go down into the catacombs of Italy to bring food for Christians that had been escaping persecution in that general area of the world during that time period. And you know me, I love me some bones, I love me some candles. So I don't know, I suppose the visual iconography, the story, the pathos is something that I've always been really connected to with St. Lucy. So this was a very fun process. Okay, now is the stressful part. Ignore Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast in the background, because it's time to flood. Got my palette. I've actually got some wet paint for once instead of dried paint. Okay. Fuck it, just go for it. Try not to mix it too much. Okay. 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 Oh, okay. Okay. Now that really does need to dry on that side. So, pick her up, lay her down, and we'll do the other side. Trying keeping it as thick upon just the most edge part, because that's where there's technically the least amount of light. And a little bit more here, and then very light. Okay. Okay, okay. Shit. If you ever wanted to know what it sounds like, at least when I'm creating art, a lot of it is just shit. Shit. No, that'll work. Shit. Shit. Okay. 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 Okay, alright, okay, alright, okay, alright, okay, alright. Okay. That's spooky. That's cool. Okay. Alright. Cool. So here we are at 4 layers of that beautiful indigo. I think I'm going to do one more just for the outermost edges, and then we'll take off the tape and we'll start working on St. Lucy herself. The crunching is the cat. Just ignore the cat. Okay. We're pretty relatively dry. I'm really happy with how this has come out. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I actually did the soak and stretch method, which I have never done personally for my own work, but I am excited with how it's turned out. So let's see if I can do this with one hand. Ignore the neighbor's dogs. That is a constant of my life. But next part of this process is going to be St. Lucy herself. And I may give this a full night to dry before I start painting her, because I really don't want the light that I want to capture to mix into the paints that I've already put down, which are, meant to be darker. Oh, this is lovely. This has turned out quite nice. Oops. Oopsie poopsie, please. Thank you. All right. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Please. Thanks. 1/2 done. I hope this is just very exciting, just to hear me curse at my own paper. Goodbye. All right. Let's do this. Very professional. I keep on seeing those really nice, it's like a tripod, but it goes around your neck. Maybe one day. Oh, stop being a bitch. There we go. Okay. Very good. Very nice. Very good. Very nice. I love how creepy those skulls look in the background. I'm very happy. Very impressed. All right. Last little bit. There we go. Okay. You're looking good, Lucy. You're looking good. I decided to do the exact opposite of the thing I had thought of in the first place, because I did want to lay out the main colors of the red, the green, and then the brown for the bread before I lost the light of the day, which is very much a part of this process of me painting in my childhood bedroom, is just arguing with the light that I have available. But I have really enjoyed using the color palette paints that I have right now. It's in a Campus brand palette, like a to-go palette, but I've filled up all the other little spots with extras, It's the next day. Let's see where we are. I'm quite happy with the color mapping that I've gently done last night. Today is going to be a lot of erasing and then putting down layers and then waiting for it to dry, and then more erasing and then putting down layers and waiting for it to dry. I'm really trying to get some of the darker aspects of, what would it be, like skin tones, outlining, shading, because a lot of this, especially up near the crown where the candles are, I want it to stay as light as possible. So I think I'm gonna get this bread and then I'm gonna do the outlining of her dress in India ink, like very, very light India ink. And then I'll start working on skin tone, maybe do hair, and then I guess I am going to try and leave those candles for last, because I want them to have as light of a touch as possible. So we'll see. I need to fix that apple too. Those apples are fucked up. Let's fix those. And I just cannot say enough how impressed I am with this paper and how much it held up to my continued layering and layering and layering of different paints. And I truly believe that I'm gonna do an entire series now of watercolor pictures and illustrations where I just take the time and I soak and stretch my paper, because god damn did I have a fun time doing all of this. And I actually, throughout this last week and change, have been rereading some of my favorite books. And so I won't talk too much about it, but I do have a very large series that I think I'm going to start working on. So that's exciting. But in working with just the lightest little bit of India ink, I have a nice light gray for her dress. And so then I decided for the skin tone I like to go, I just love these watercolor pencils that I have. And so I went in with these pencils primarily to do all of her outline. And I also wanted to make her look sort of almost jaundiced because, this was a time when people did not have the best food sources and light sources. And also her eyes, I sort of did not give them much definition. I wanted her to almost seem to be, blindly walking down into the catacombs with only the light of her crown to show her the way. And I'm just very, very happy with how this has turned out thus far. And here we are, the very end of the process, which was just the touch-ups in the face and a little bit of darkening of shadows and then the beautiful luminescence of the candles at the very top. I didn't necessarily go full lifelike because I didn't want to add a different blue than what I had been working on. Usually I would add a deep royal blue at the very base of the candle where the wick is, but I didn't want to do that this time. And now the last finishing touches are, for me at least, I wanted to do the eyelashes after I had put down as much water on the page as I wanted because I didn't want to screw them up at the end. Didn't want to fuck them up. So now very nice light eyelashes. Oh, excuse me. And I just love the depth of the holly berries that I got on her crown itself. Now, what would an illustration that I create be without just a touch of some form of gold and or acrylic paint at the end? So I did break down, I did decided I wanted to have almost as pure white as possible to reflect light on those holly berries themselves. So I went ahead, I cheated, I added a little bit of white paint, and I think it's all the better for it. I had a really lovely time just figuring out how bright I could make the teeny tiny bits of this page as. And I thought 3 sets of 3 would work really well. It would be a nice balance. And yes, my beautiful standby gold. A lot of the artwork that I have seen for St. Lucy is Byzantinian in era, and so I wanted to have just a little tiny bit of a callback to that on her collar with just, a nice thick band with bits of gold. And it's not a lot, it's literally just polka dots. But just a little bit of a callback to some of the old art history that I've seen for her. Because St. Lucy's Day is actually a relatively new-ish creation, and it's primarily celebrated in Sweden, if I'm remembering correctly, which is why she's shown with, these big golden locks of hair, plaited, braided, on either side of her face. And I will admit I am really enjoying growing my hair out so that it can be as long as St. Lucy's is in this again. Because my hair used to be extremely long down to my butt. And we're going for it. We're going back there. My hair will never be golden, but it'll be long again. So this is very much, one of the more odd holiday traditions that I've seen anyone do. But I don't care. I have had a dozen different kinds of holiday traditions that I have tried and that I have left by the wayside, in the last 31 years of my life. And so this is certainly not a usual holiday tradition, but it is mine. It is one of my favorites. Yeah. I'm very, very, very proud of this piece. I think for the last 4 or so years, maybe 5, I've been illustrating St. Lucy, and this is one of my most favorite pieces that I have done for her. I love the layering of light and dark in the background. I am very impressed in how I captured a look of what I would call sincere melancholy on the face of this portrait. And so that's where we are. That's where we are today. So I suppose this is a good time now. This is a good time to talk about homework. What painting are you doing? What sketching and drawing are you doing? Are you making music for this time of year? Are you cooking this year? I certainly am. So that's just my earnest wish for you all is to go home, do a little bit of homework of creating something, whether it is a part of your regular holiday traditions, whether it's something you want to try out for the first time that might stick and you might do it again next year. Who knows? But spend a little time doing something. Do a little devotion to whatever your divinity is. Or if you don't have divinity, just have a little devotion to yourself. But thank you all so much. Have a beautiful end of the year. I'll see you next week and talk to you later, guys.